Well, hey folks, it's your old pal, King Waspinator here, and tonight we're going to talk about one of my favorite classic aliens from Star Trek The Next Generation.
The Benzites of Benzar.
Well, good evening, Waspateers. Wanted to talk a little bit about one of the criminally underrated and underused races of Star Trek, the Benzites. They are only featured in like a handful of episodes, 3 in total, twice in Star Trek The Next Generation in Season 1 and 2, and also there was a female Benzite spied in an episode of Deep Space Nine in Season 5. The Benzites, I personally like them just because in a setting where most of the aliens you run into are just look exactly like regular humans, except they all have a similar broken nose, or they all have a vagina in the middle of the forehead. The Benzites, they actually took a little bit of time and trouble to craft something that looks like it might not have evolved from a hominid at some point, which I appreciate. And also, I like their kind of quiet, quirky personality, and I personally wish that they had been used more throughout the course of the series, but, well, I guess at this point, thanks to CBS All Access, I don't really want to wish to see them in any further series, because they would just be done badly, but anyway, here we go. Benzite physiology gives this species' skin a hairless blue to green complexion. The Benzite skull has a thick protrusion that extends over the brow and nose, with 2 facial tendrils above the lip. Until the year 2370, Benzites in Starfleet had trouble breathing in standard nitrogen-oxygen atmospheres and relied on breathing apparatus. Their apparent change in condition, which allows the species to go without breathing aids, is rumored to be thanks to genetic engineering, though reports are unconfirmed. Highly meticulous, a Benzite Starfleet officer is a valuable resource when it comes to exploration and investigation. Benzar is a marginal Class M world with a humid, ammonia-heavy atmosphere. Its primary is Delta Pavonis, a yellow dwarf star similar to Sol, but on the verge of becoming a red giant. Benzar is the second planet of the system, and its orbit is currently in the middle of its system's habitable zone. Benzar has an axial tilt of approximately 30%, with an average oscillation of 3.2% over a roughly 50,000-year period. Some 85% of Benzar's surface is covered in oceans, the water tinted deep brown from dissolved alkali metals. The combination of pronounced axial tilt and large oceans makes Benzar prone to violent weather, especially hurricanes. The land masses consist of island chains and archipelagos covered in rich black vegetation. The plant life gets its color from alkali and metal salts in the soil, which the plants break down for energy. Most of the fauna of Benzar is amphibious or entirely aquatic. Benzites primarily live in geodomes. These large dome cities are built over ocean platforms, granting them easy access to water. The domes were originally designed to withstand the violent and regular hurricanes that Benzar experiences. As an additional benefit, they trap humid air in cold, dry latitudes for the comfort and well-being of their residents. Benzite's smooth, hairless skin allows them to glide easily through the water. Their facial barbels are sensory organs that allow them to sense electric fields while immersed, an adaptation that helps navigation in Benzar's dark, mineral-tinted waters. Benzite ears are ringed with muscle, allowing them to close underwater. Ear closure does not affect a Benzite's underwater hearing. The vibrations caused by sound in a liquid medium transmit directly to the Benzite's auditory nerves. Benzite's skin gains coloration and texture from the specific mineral content of the water where the Benzite is spawned. This causes citizens from the same geodome to bear a remarkable resemblance to each other, often to the point where off-worlders cannot tell them apart. This may have evolved as a way of communicating water quality and content in the Benzite's pre-sapient ancestors. The difficulty non-Benzites have in differentiating between Benzites is something they generally accept with equanimity. Benzite society is precise but not authoritarian. Benzites are quite gregarious, especially among others of their dome. They communicate through pheromones and body language, and speech is used merely for emphasis. The effect is more pronounced underwater, as a group of Benzites can act as a unit with almost telepathic precision. The Benzite government is a fluid meritocracy. Benzites achieve governmental positions by achieving in a vocation related to that position. The primacy of each ministry changes depending on the situation. One might be in the midst of negotiations with the planetary ministry one day, only to find that an anticipated coronal mass ejection has placed the space ministry in charge during the next day. More than one Federation diplomat has observed that dealing with one Benzite minister means dealing with them all. Despite the apparently chaotic nature of Benzar's government, corruption is all but absent. Benzar's legal code, which has roots in their nomadic past, is one of the most intricate of the Federation. Benzite litigators have few equals in spotting legal loopholes and contradictions, and to call a contract watertight is a high praise amongst them. While this propensity drives some Federation members to distraction, Benzite contract lawyers are invaluable when negotiating with the Ferengi. Top-ranked Benzite litigators have a jurisprudential responsibility that extends far beyond the usual duties of lawyers on other planets. They are granted broad authority to annotate and interpret the law, provided that their interpretation is justified by previous commentary and precedent. Law is a particularly prestigious career on Benzar, and a cause for celebration by progenitors whose child qualifies. Benzites are guided towards a career from their first years in school. Careful tests measure the children's intellectual capacity, emotional capacity, interests, and talents. Each student is set a personalized curriculum, which adapts to the student's continuing development. Students are taught in small groups, each focusing on a specific part of their curriculum, and move between groups as the course of study changes. Study groups are not segregated by age, and any group may have students of wildly differing ages. Benzar has been a Federation member for less than a decade, and there are still some adjustments to be made on both sides. Benzites are precise, meticulous, and accustomed to operating with a high level of independence. While they respect authority, many Benzites see nothing wrong with jumping up the chain of command when necessary. This is exemplified by the Benzite regulation that states that Benzite officers, when encountering an unknown situation, are to take full responsibility for its analysis and provide a resolution before reporting it to superiors. This has caused at least one diplomatic incident, and Benzar and Starfleet have found it necessary to readdress these cultural differences. Benzites also interpret Federation law extremely strictly. A Terran might interpret a law differently depending on circumstances, citing the spirit of the law. A Benzite would never do so. To a Benzite, the spirit of the law is expressed in the words of the law, no more and no less. There are several areas of law in which both Benzar and Starfleet are finding it necessary to reinterpret and clarify laws and their intent. Genetic engineering is strictly regulated within the Federation and permitted only to treat existing genetic illnesses. How then did the Benzites overcome their species-wide requirement for respirators and oxygen-nitrogen atmospheres without being censored for genetic engineering? The Benzite government concealed the true nature of the enhancements performed upon its spacefaring citizens. Their previous reliance on respirators was explained as a consequence of the Benzites' requirements of high levels of humidity. The enhancements were described as purely cybernetic implants designed to retain moisture on a Benzite's gill chambers, which were indeed necessary for a Benzite's comfort and well-being in another atmosphere. Dr. Morshny, the project's head geneticist, had developed a transgenic treatment to augment the cybernetic implants. The treatment adjusted the Benzite's lungs' capacity to absorb oxygen to compensate for the higher oxygen levels in the typical Federation atmosphere. The Federation's inevitable discovery of the truth almost cost Benzar their Federation membership. Moshny justified the treatment on the grounds that a reversible, non-heritable, transgenic adjustment to the respiratory system was not an enhancement, but a valid medical treatment to allow Benzites to function in standard oxygen-nitrogen atmospheres. The Federation reluctantly agreed. However, Medical Corps and legal officials plan to keep a much closer eye on Benzar's medical science for the foreseeable future. If you have anything to talk about, any fond Benzite memories, feel free to leave a comment in the comments below. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. And as always, go fuck yourself. Okay, say Benzites of Benzar.
Benzodiazepam. The benzos of Benihana.
No.
Benzate.
Benzites of Benzar. Okay, come on. Benzites of Benzar. It's not that hard.
The Benites of Benadryl. Benzoate of Benzar.
I guess we'll just have to live with that one.